So Bashni, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small suburb west of Pretoria called Laudium. It is primarily an Indian suburb. And yes, I grew up in Laudium. I schooled in Laudium schools, my high school being Laudium Secondary School, and then went to the University of Pretoria, where I studied a BCom degree specializing in tourism management and marketing. So I'm a thoroughbred Pretorian, so to speak.
And tell us, what was your dream career as you grew up?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing. Growing up in a family that is, I grew up in a very strong, close-knit family, very big family. And a lot of my influence stems from my family life. A family that was, respected the values of humanity, justice, and service. Mm-hmm. So I think based on that, it influenced a bit of my outlook, a lot of my values. And funny enough, I was firstly interested in studying psychology. And my parents, who were a big influence in my life, said to me, no, that there's a lot more I could do. I matriculated officially at the end of apartheid, at the dawn of democracy. So with the prospect of change coming to South Africa, my dad particularly was saying that there's going to be so many new opportunities for young people. Look at areas where you could, what would be the skills needed in South Africa. And look at areas like in geology and things of that sort. Fortunately, it was not where my interests lied. Mm-hmm. And I thought I'd find the best of both worlds, do something a bit different. And the University of Pretoria was then offering a degree course in hotel and tourism management, which was a very new thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, let me try this in a field that is quite broad, commerce, so I'm not boxing myself into something, and let's see where it goes. And I think, in that time, in the era of where I grew up, a lot of my fellow community members, friends, etc., it was a very stereotypical career path, It would be one of three things, or four things maybe. You could be a teacher. You could do accountancy, become an accountant. You could become a doctor, quite popular at the time, go into medicine, or a lawyer. And at that time, those were really the options. And I was somebody who said, no, I would like to do something different. Being being boxed in life, growing up, being told what you are and what you're not, having the opportunity to be who you are and be something and explore something different was always enticing. So, yes, off I went, studied BCom Hotel and Tourism Management at the University of Pretoria. Very interesting. I think that the spark for that also started in my matric year, my last year of high school. I had an opportunity to travel on a cultural exchange program. I used to, I'm a trained classical Indian dancer, Bharatanatyam dancer, and as part of my group at the time, we were invited to Stuttgart for a cultural festival and be part of the program. And this is in your last year of school. So what would you do? Would your parents then say, no, you've got to focus on the books? It's your last year, the rest of your life, your career depends on the grades you get. Or do you take the time off and go and see the world? And my parents said to me, no, you are going. And you're not just going for the week of the program. We're going to save up, we will find money, and we want you to travel Europe while you are there. And so I spent, at the end of the program, I went over to London, to some relatives in London, stayed with them, got a visa to go to France, because my parents said to me, what you will learn through travel and experience that way, there would be nothing, my child, that you would learn in school that would equip you in the same way. And I think that's where the travel bug kind of bit.
Okay.
So hotel and tourism management attracted me, and yes, I think the rest was kind of history at that point. I've been in tourism management, and most of my career has been in tourism. But what was my dream at the time? I think, truthfully, I am living the dream now. But if I have to be honest, my dream was to be a psychologist, to help people,
Right.
help people through.
And Bashni, who inspired you in your early days?
Yeah, it's a tough one to answer. That if there's any one person. As I said, I grew up in a big, strong, tied family, with experience from all angles. It's, from a very strong political sense that we grew up in, to a family that, my dad, who was a very well-respected footballer in his time. My mom, who was, comes from a very strong musical family, so music and culture there. So there's many people that influenced me. So I can't honestly say there's one. There's elements of definitely my parents, both my mom and dad, who still play a very big part of my life. And I think the area of influence is really about making sure that, I acknowledge who I am, be true to who I am, and push boundaries. So I think that's been the influence, really more about values from various people. Growing up in a home where I lived with my granny in the same home till the age of 22. I lived with aunts and uncles, and we all lived in one big family. We were a household of like 12 people. So there's many areas of influence in my life, which I think is what has shaped me to be the person I am today. Well-rounded, influence from all parts, the sense of community, which sometimes I think we lose focus on today, of understanding that we are part of a bigger collective. We're part of the tapestry, and it's important that we play our role for everyone else's benefit, that we're all intertwined.
So Bashni, where did you start your career?
Oh, interesting one, that one, because when I was at university, I remember the lecturer asking in the third year, in our final year, the lecturer asked all of us in the class, where would you want to work? And I said at the time, I would like to end up working at SATUR. At the time, South African Tourism Board was called SATUR. I said, that's where I'd like to end up working. And needless to say, by surprise, my first job was at SATUR. As a temp, I was doing my honors degree at the time in marketing, and I managed through luck, actually, to get a job at SATUR in the research department. And I was not really, it was really by accident. I got a job, it was SATUR, wow, let me go in and work. So that was where I started my career. It was the transition between the old South Africa and the new South Africa, and SATUR in itself was going through that transition. I then moved on to Gauteng Tourism Agency. And that was a very good opportunity, because that allowed me the space to explore many different parts of a career. I was appointed as the IT manager. I have a degree in commerce with specialization in marketing and tourism management. What do I know about establishing a local area network? What is a server? I learned about all of these things on the job. The CEO at the time was very supportive and allowed me to learn. So, yes, my whole career has been in tourism. I took to it like a fish to water, so to speak. I had a small break in between at a consulting, a little industrial consulting company, learning and doing research reports about pumps and process control instrumentation, which was not my favorite. And then South African Tourism, the rebranded new organization, was launched, and there was opportunities there. And I was again lucky to end up working at South African Tourism, so to speak.
So can you maybe share a highlight or two of your tourism career?
Sure.
Good memories, maybe the best memories.
Oh, there's so many. I've been in tourism, as you say, practically most of my life. I think, part of what works for me is seeing success, a little milestone achieved, impact made. And well, yeah, I think highlights that come to mind. I got to travel a lot more, get to see a lot more places. But I think really establishing, from a South African tourism perspective, really consolidating the knowledge base of tourism in the country. So being part of a team that actually put in place the first tourism satellite account for South Africa, so that we can now say how much tourism contributes to the economy of South Africa. Being part of that team was a great achievement for me, because we had to work right at the ground roots level. We also took our case to the world body, World Tourism Organization, because you're growing a solution that is fit for Africa. You're learning from the experts around the world, but those technologies don't always apply. So, that's one highlight for me, I must say, is being able to really come from nothing, fight a case for a sector that seems to be a fun sector about holidays and beaches and safaris. But there's a real impact that tourism has on some of the key challenges we have as a country. Job creation. It has such an immense potential to impact and create jobs in our country. And apart from that, we've got, it's an easy and a wonderful job. We have a beautiful country. It's not a hard sell. It's not a hard sell. People ask me about, what's your day like today in South Africa? It's winter. And yet we're sitting in Johannesburg and the sun is blazing, the sky is blue. What more can you ask for? So that, I would say, for me, the one thing that came to mind is really having that impact and saying, this is where we're at, making a difference in the lives of South Africans.
Now, Bashni, today you're in charge of strategy at SA Tourism. Can you maybe share your vision for the future of tourism?
Yes, I think, the vision is to have, from tourism, lots of tourists coming into South Africa. So probably double, if not triple, the number of people that we have currently coming in. And people having a fantastic, hassle-free experience. Something that is so memorable, that puts this little country that sits at the tip of the big continent of Africa firmly on the map. That people understand that, as small as we are, what are all the wonderful things we have to offer, not just from the scenic beauty perspective, but also from our people, the diversity, the energy, all of those values that hold true to us as South Africans to shine. So my vision is that we see many people coming into the country, and as a result, many more of our South African citizens, fellow brothers and sisters, having meaningful jobs. That one day we could see less poverty as visible as we see today, and that everyone has a decent life and a quality life. I think that's the vision I have for tourism. From a strategy perspective, to get us there, I think the paths are quite clear, what we need to do, but they're not easy paths to follow. And tourism is quite a complex industry with many interdependencies. So as South Africans, we need to understand the value of life, the value of each other as human beings. And this talks to the fact that we need to reduce the levels of crime in our country. We need to have a much safer environment for us, because if it's safe for us as South Africans, it will be safe for all the visitors who come. We need to welcome visitors into our country. South Africans are warm, loving, hospitable people. And that's often not the picture that the rest of the world see of us. They often see us in the height of our frustration and anger. And those are the things, the parts that we need to solve. Let's make it safe for each other to live in. Let's respect each other. Because when we respect each other, everybody else would follow suit. So those are, that's one of the big barriers for us. We know we need to address that from a strategic perspective, but we all need to work together on that. And then policy issues as well. Make it easier for people to come into the country. Extend an invitation to the world, but be open about it. Allow people ease of access to the country. Those are the things that that are really standing in our way. And then also some investment into the infrastructure of our country that will benefit us as South Africans, as citizens in the country, but also for us traveling our own country, appreciating our own country, knowing what we have on offer. Our history, our dark history has had many negative impacts on us. The fact that our priority as South Africans is not about traveling and exploring the world, exploring our country, understanding what we have on offer, and changing that for people. Giving people a lot more to life than just earning a living. Really, just really living life. I think those are the things that tourism has the potential to impact.
So Bashni, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point where you could have gone a different route, but decided to take it this way?
Well, I think I was lucky in that, I did step off the path of tourism. I tried very early on in my career, and I thought, okay, this IT business is not quite for me, even though I am in a tourism industry and organization. So I tried a bit more about stepping out into the knowledge industry in this consulting company, and looking at how we take data and to inform decisions. But it was a very short stint. And I was fortunate that I got back on track in South African tourism. Within South African tourism, I think my path has been quite natural. I have been in the insights, data and insights field from the time I'd started. And I think that's more suited to me because my role, my purpose in life, I think, is about impact and impact for everyone else. And in a sector, in a world that is so diverse and complex, I think we sometimes lose sight of facts, and opinions drive us to take some decisions that may not be the correct decisions to take. So I've been fortunate to be able to shape the direction of tourism marketing in this country based on fact. And as a result, I've had some opportunities. I've spent 18 months in Paris to market South Africa to the South European markets of France, Italy, Spain and Portugal, which was a wonderful experience for me. Earlier on, I had an opportunity to direct the marketing approach for Europe as part of South African tourism. So I think the turning point really was the step out of tourism for the year and realizing that, no, this is really where you belong. This is where you can make a difference. You're doing something fun, selling a beautiful product, but more importantly, the work you do has benefit to fellow South Africans, and that was important for me.
So Bashni, what is driving you today?
I think the same thing. The issue of, I think more so than before, South Africa is now in a position where, I think, and also with the global context, times are tough. Times are tough for everyone, not just a select few of people. I think everyone is feeling the impact of changing factors in the world. So more so than now, we need people to have meaningful, decent employment, income. We need to address a lot of the imbalances that we've been plagued with as a society. So what's driving me now more so is the current situation economically that we face in South Africa, and saying that we really need to make a change. And that still keeps me going. Getting to work, getting from work, and just looking around and seeing how many people have not. And through no fault of theirs, being victims of circumstance, and how can we change that? And that's really what still keeps me going. I have great belief, commitment, passion for my country, and I'm very committed to make a meaningful difference in changing the face of the country. The issues, the social issues that impact the country.
Now, Bashni, let's talk about leadership. And I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Yes, you're right. Leadership is a very big word, and often many people are not able to define it. It becomes quite a personal understanding of what it is. I think that, reflecting a bit on leadership and where we are today and where we need to go to, I think there's a bit of understanding of where we are now and some of the factors that impact the social fabric we have today. And so for me, looking at leadership, I want to think back to the past a bit and look at some of the values and the principles that we had in leaders around us at the time that arguably we seem to have lost today. And that for me is what I would say where I would like leadership to go. So if you look at what technology has brought to the world today, is that everyone arguably is a leader, which is not a bad thing at all. But understanding the depth of character, the depth of leadership that we need to move us out of the situations that we find ourselves in. I would like to see that we remember some of the values and principles of great leaders that have passed before us, and go back and take a leaf out of those those stories and bring them back into life today. As we evolve and modernize, I think we've got to keep true to some true principles and values, and I wonder whether that depth exists in society today. I think technology makes it very easy for people to voice opinions, to shape opinions, but without the adequate knowledge, context, we often lead people astray or get led astray. So I would like to see that the future of leadership becomes a lot more, or leaders in future become a lot more deeper than we've had of late. Time, everything is just at such a fast pace and information is all around us. But do we really spend enough time understanding the information we're getting, contextualizing it, or are we quick to react? And I think in South Africa there are many examples, recent examples of how people, not necessarily leaders, but how people influence others. And on what basis? And I think for society at large, South Africa and the world over, we need to exercise our ability to think. That's what sets us apart from every other creature on earth, the ability to reason and looking back and questioning and challenging people. So we have the opportunity to shape even better leaders than the past. We have access to so much more information, but we shouldn't lose the depth and the robustness of what we had in the past, because everything is just at our fingertips. It's almost makes us lazy to think.
And Bashni, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
Yes, I think, I think that's the key word, is about learning. And I think that would, for me, always be the key thing in life. If anyone is true to, for me, someone I would look up to is somebody that doesn't claim to know it all at any given point in time. It is about being self-aware, learning from yourself, learning from others. But learning is an important part for me in a leadership journey. Humility. And I don't think you're able to learn if you're not humble. And self-aware. I think those things are very important for me. I've learned many lessons through my experiences, my career. So when I went to Paris, and the brief that I was given and what I needed to do was basically establish this regional office, this regional operation, and I was quite confident on my knowledge that I could do it. I knew the theory. I knew the business very well. I knew what the problem was, and I could solve that. No problem. And my assignment was not for a fixed period. It was quite flexible. It was an interim thing. Go in, sort it out. And in my mind, it's chop, chop, we'll be back. And I was quite humbled because what I thought I knew of the French was not what I did know. And that experience, the humility that he taught me in that experience was what I thought enhanced my personality, enhanced my character, certainly taught me a lot of things to be a better leader. Listening more to others. So those are some of the things I've learned, but I think the key word for me in all of this was learning. Learning and improving and always being open to learn. And learning comes from various facets in life. It comes from listening to other people, from reading, just absorbing information, formal or informal, but there's so many ways.
Bashni, when it comes to social media, what is it you would advise future leaders? How should they handle social media to build their own brand?
It's something that is new to me, using social media for my personal brand. I think for the longest time, I've been focused on the country brand and my role in helping build South Africa as a destination brand globally. And then I paused recently and looked at my personal brand in relation to all of this. And yes, I think social media has a very important role to play. It's a very powerful medium. And I think the responsibility, I think the first thing is about being responsible in the use of any media, and particularly social media, because of its instantaneous nature, really. So I think leaders have an opportunity here where you can reach so many people so easily today than before. I think it has a very important and powerful role to play. I think future leaders could learn to engage a lot more meaningfully on social media. Linking to what I was saying about the depth of knowledge and sharing that knowledge, you can reach so many people a lot easily through social media than previously.
Right.
So I think that's how we need to use it, as a means of information, not just communication, a means of information, and to really share what we know, because that's when we all grow, is when knowledge is shared. And I think that's where we could make a meaningful difference in people's lives. And yes, I think people from a brand perspective could look to see, I think there's benefit in not just selfishly looking at your brand, but how do you earn brand values, in my view, about how you impact others. And I think through impacting that, the inherent value that you gain is important. So, yeah. Don't focus so much on your personal brand. Look at what impact you've made, and you will be growing your brand in that way. But let's focus on a better society for all, including us.
Right. Now, Bashni, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
Yeah, in a formal context, I must say, formally, I don't think I've mentored anyone. I won't say anyone considered me as formally as a mentor. But there is a friend, a colleague right now, who we've walked a bit of a journey together. So this young lady, fresh out of university, joined my team at South African Tourism as a junior analyst many, many years ago. But a very bright young lady. And within a very short space of time, she had quite quickly reached the pinnacle of that role. And there wasn't really much opportunity for her at the time. There was no other positions available, etc. And she felt, no, I think I'm young enough. I need to explore, move, spread my wings and fly. And she stepped out of tourism and she went into the banking world. And it wasn't long thereafter that she called me and said, I don't think I did the right thing. I should have listened to you. Should have been a bit more patient here. I think my career would have taken a different path. So we spent a lot of time talking time together, talking, understanding what her needs are, what her passions were, me giving her my perspective on where her skills lie. And she went on a journey, I can't remember the number of years, out of tourism, grew, she started her own business, was a bit of an entrepreneur. That didn't work out for her as she had planned. Formal industry, corporate world, came back to tourism. And the growth that this young lady has had in that journey has been something that is, I think we'd both look at and qualify as being in a mentorship type of relationship. And that's something that does stick out in my mind. We while we still work together today, we remain very good dear friends, because we've walked a path when she learned from me, from what I could share in terms of learnings of working with her, my learnings from my own career path, but I also learned from her about how people at different generations look at life. What are some of the challenges young people face? And how do we then work together to solve common problems of today? I wouldn't say that was, formally a mentorship, but definitely I can honestly say, and I know she would agree, is that our relationship definitely had a meaningful impact in her life in a holistic way, not just from a career perspective. She's a lot more settled, a lot more grounded. She's on a solid path for career success.
Right. And Bashni, are there any role models of leadership that you feel future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
I think there are many, and thinking about this, I honestly struggle to say who is one leader that we could look at. I think in our history in South Africa, there are certainly many examples of leaders that helped shape the new South Africa that we're now enjoying. And I think from our history, there are many people that we can look at. Yes, sure, they're from a political perspective largely, but I think understanding what are the values of people. Look, Madiba always will remain a very poignant, very proud, bold symbol for South Africa, for the world, and definitely a lot of lessons to be learned from Madiba. But I think we need to look at role models across our lives. It could be our mothers, our sisters, our grannies, our grandfathers, fathers, brothers, sisters. And I think there's different elements we need to look at. So I would say that's where, for me, what should be studied is to get to the bottom of what were the commonalities across different people, across our history particularly. I would say typically looking to South Africa, because that's where it makes, it brings it home for us. It's something we can identify with, and not looking at role models around the world that may not resonate with us a lot. And that's a tough one, because, as I said, in today's world, you are celebrities role models. What are we looking for here? But arguably, it could be the cliche that Madiba always stands out as, and no pun intended, but really stands tall as a role model for me in terms of his journey in personally and his personal journey to success, but also how he, the path that he's walked politically and his time on Robben Island, and what that meant for him and how it shaped him. And I think, if I reflect on my knowledge of Madiba, I think that, the time at, incarceration was a humbling time for him. In my assessment, it was a very fiery man before that, fighting for something quite passionate to him. And how did he manage to come through 27 years, looking at all of the atrocities he withstood and brought a nation together? And that forgiveness was at the core of his being. And I think often we forget that. So, yes, it does sound like a cliche, and I think there are many people we can draw on, but those values are things that I think we should look to as role models to emulate. Integrity, have integrity, be respectful, and have conviction. Have conviction in what we do. I think those are the tenets that, and those are the things that if I think to Madiba, that's what he stands for me. And those are the things that, and it's things that I've grown up with. Whether Madiba was my family role model or not, I can't answer that. But those were the things that you taught to respect people, humanity, and forgiveness. Compassion says a lot.
Now, Bashni, how can our listeners follow you, and how should they connect with you?
Well, now that I'm fairly new to social media, I think the best way for me would be LinkedIn. It's certainly a platform that I enjoy engaging on. I think the opportunities to share information and connect with people across the world is amazing. So that would be the best way to reach me.
Right.
I am a stalwart at South African tourism, so finding me at South African tourism is also another way, but I think the best way to reach out to me is through LinkedIn. And last but not least, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own lives? Yes, I think for me is respect and appreciate depth. Depth of knowledge, depth of character. Be true to who you are and be the best version of yourself at all times. I think those are key messages for me.
Well, Bashni, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and reminding us that we should go deep and stay true to ourselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.